It's Thursday. It's Thursday. Change of day today. So today's got a fun day. I'm actually going through and I'm going to break down a deal that we just recently closed. Pretty cool deal. It was a double close, actually. That it was a deal that we actually thought we would have to throw away just because things didn't work out. And I'll kind of get into that, like what happened and where it all went. Um, but it actually worked out awesome. We ended up making money. We monetized a deal that was basically dead, and it worked out great. Um, so I'm quite excited about it. Obviously, the other way, if we had done everything, would have been way more profitable. But overall, it was a great deal. We got it done in less than 90 days, and it all worked out swimmingly. I'd say so. I mean, a couple headaches throughout the road, so I'll kind of go over those headaches and what happened and how we mitigated them and all that stuff. Um, but for the most part, everything pretty much went kind of as planned as soon as we kind of figured out what our new plan was. So I'm just going through now. I got to open up my last docs. I'm just trying to find the closing docs. And then I'll kind of break everything down, how it all looked, how it all went. What were some of the things we looked for when we did our due diligence? What are some of the things that we noticed? And when we had to go back and change things, how it all kind of went. So where is this? Just trying to find my final closing HUD. Let me see if she has it here. Register email. Dennis. Articles. Yep, okay, that's all that stuff. This is HUD 1 and HUD 2. Okay, great. Got my two HUDs. Okay, cool. All right, so what we have here is we basically had a property. I'm going to share my screen right now. So we had sent a mailer out for a seller finance offer. Okay, so what we did is we were looking for properties, large properties with good road frontage and all that stuff. So we had sent out a mailer, a seller finance mailer, and came back, and this seller actually got our mailer, and then he called us back. So here's the subject parcel right here. This is the exact thing. It's 300 acres. It's got two roads, one road, road 1, road 2. So double-sided road frontage. And then this right here, we could have added gravel road. We could have added gravel road here, whatever the case may be. But essentially, we looked at this and we said, man, this is an awesome subdivide play. Like all day, every day, this is going to be a fantastic subdivide. So we came in here and we said, well, let's break it down. So we were like, we really like the property. We like the double-sided road frontage. We see there's water on surface water here and here, and there's also some of these other parcels. So I'm like, we're probably good for wells. And it looks like there's houses, and these houses have utilities. They're private utilities. I'll show you a little bit about that, how we found all that stuff. They're private utilities, but they were there. They existed. So we're like, okay, great. We have water. We have everything we really need. We have double-sided road frontage. We could easily subdivide this and make a nice little plot. So 300 acres. We basically take this down into 27 lots, kind of based on our drawings. So here's our initial estimates, kind of idea. Here's 21 lot drawings. So we kind of figure we would cut in like this, come over, make some over here, make some along this way, make some along that way. We also thought about doing some longer ones this way and making these weird shapes and all that stuff. We also thought about maybe cutting this in half right here and then doing like a road right here. So having a road coming in, driving down, and then we could basically get, 5 this way or whatever, and then a bunch this way and a bunch this way. They wouldn't have their own road frontage, but we would create a new road frontage for them. Ultimately, this is pretty much the layout we kind of went with. I think there was another version actually, but yeah, actually there is another version. I'll show you guys that. So this is pretty much the layout we kind of went with. We were like, okay, this is the layout we want, all that stuff. Once we really decided that, so part of this process, when you get these types of properties in, before you start you got to check for water. You got to check for all that stuff before you really start doing your due diligence and like calling the county, finding out whatever. You need to kind of have an idea of what your lot layout is going to be so that you could tell them how many meters you're going to need, right? Or also, if you're going to drill wells, how many wells are you going to drill, right? If I just call and say, I don't know, I'm not too sure, well, you sound like an idiot. So what we decided to do was we said, okay, well, how can we make sure that we're good with lot layouts and all that stuff, right? So we said, let's look at this. Let's kind of go through everything and make sure our everything looks good and all that stuff, whatever. So we did that. So we went through, we checked out everything. Everything looked great. We liked our lot layout. We found we had enough road frontage. We found all that stuff. And what we do know is about Texas. Texas has the 10-acre subdivide rule. So we're allowed to subdivide anything that's more than 10 acres along a road frontage. So we were fine. Everything checked out. So once we did that, we went ahead and we went to this right here, and we checked for pipelines. Okay. So here we are. This is actually our parcel right here. So check this out. Right here is Ostrich Lane. Our parcel was right here, and it extended to right about here, somewhere like that. So it was about right here. So we looked and we were like, man, this is great. We have 10054, Tri-County SUD, blah, blah, blah. So it looks like Tri-County SUD services this whole area. The one negative aspect we did see is we were pretty much at the end of the pipeline, 10054 pipeline, okay? So we're like, okay, so, our parcel kind of just hit this in right here. So we had halfway. So worst case scenario, we have to extend this pipeline down a little bit. And then we also, on the other side, on 7 Mile, we have a different facility, MSWC. And we found out they have a pipeline there too. Now, pretty much ended right at our property, same thing. So we have to pay to extend it. So what we did is we went to Tri-County SUD. We went to this other company right here. We said, hey, just calling to see, what your pipeline capacity is. What we're basically looking to do is we're basically looking to get, this many lots along 4 Mile Road. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 lots along 4 Mile Road. So we're looking for 16 meters. Okay. So we had to submit a formal paperwork and all that stuff. So we went through. So we submitted formal paperwork and everything like that. And basically they went through and kind of looked at us and said, hey, look, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do this deal. We're not going to be able to do the meters for this property because we only have an 1.5 inch line right here. And we're pretty much at capacity. So we're like, shit. So we kind of thought like, man, this deal is kind of going to be dead. But let me back up because I kind of just went into the water and I kind of went into everything. Let me break it down. Okay. So this guy, we sent him a mailer. Okay. So mail works. We know that, right? We sent our guy here a mailer and he was interested. So we hopped on a call. This is back in February. Had our initial call. This original mailer went out in November or October last year. Okay. Had our initial call in February. It took about 4 or 5 calls. Originally, it was a seller finance offer. We originally were offering $3,400 an acre on seller finance. Okay. And we would pay him back within 1 to 2 years, depending on if everything went well. And, no matter what, he would balloon out in 2 years. So it was a purchase price of, I think we came to, it was $3,400 an acre times, it was 297 acres, 1.1, basically 1.1 million, right? He said he needed 1.125. Okay, no problem. So we did 1.125 million. That was our original agreement. And we kind of went forward with it. We were like, okay, I think we're going to be fine. We could do that, whatever. Then about a week later, we get a call back from the seller and he goes, hey, listen, I talked to my attorney and I talked to my friends and everything like that. Very smart guy, this guy is. So he ended up talking to his people, and his people were like, "Hey, look, you're in a position where basically like these guys could go and sell all the best lots and then abandon you, and then you're kind of screwed. Now you have all the worst lots to take care of, and like just basically whatever." And it doesn't leave you in a really good position. So he came back and he's like, "Look, I don't want to do seller finance." So we said to him, we're like, "Look, I understand you don't want to do seller finance, but that offer that we were going to do is kind of contingent on that. I'm not going to be able to do anything else unless we could do seller finance." So he's like, "All right, let me think on it." So he went back, he thought on it, and he came back and same thing. He's like, "I don't want to do seller finance." I'm like, "Okay." We thought on it too while we're waiting, and we said, "Look, we probably could do this. We just got to change it, right?" So we just got to change the offer. We got to change the structure and things like that. I got to get good terms on debt. So I said, "How can I get better terms on debt?" So I called some friends. I got some raised some capital, got everything together. They all kind of gave me soft commits, and they said, "Yeah, we could do it. We could probably come in." We were going to get 10 points. It's basically 10%, but it was 10 points. So every time a lot sells, they would get 10 points in their money. So our total payback was pretty, like if we sold a lot for, if we sold a lot for 3,400 an acre, we'd have to pay back almost 3,800 an acre, essentially is what it came back to be. So it worked out really good. So I'm like, wait, if we're selling these lots for about 15K an acre with water, like we're way in the money, right? So we thought we were fantastic. Okay. So we went through, we looked at it and we said, okay, we could definitely come back and offer him a cash price. Okay. Well, he dropped the ball on us that he said, "Look, I want to do the deal, but I can't do 3,400 an acre anymore. I need to be at 3,800 an acre." And I was like, whoa, what happened here? So he came back and he goes, "I want 3,800 an acre, which puts us at 1.28 million." And basically he wanted 1.15 $1,150,000 is what he basically came back and said. And I was like, "Man, I don't think we could do that. Like we were really, we're tight at that point because we have a ton of infrastructure we have to do. We have roads, we have this, we have that, we have a ton of stuff we got to do." So, I said, "Unfortunately, that's just not going to work out." Went back and forth again. We talked to some more lenders again, and then came back to him. And then we said, "Look, we're willing to work with you. I think this works out, but just we have to do our due diligence and everything like that." I said, "I'm willing to come and meet you at 1.15. If we find any negative aspects about the property or anything like that, then we talk about adjustments." He said, "Okay." We agreed to it. So we signed the contract. We sent the contract over. This was in March, like March 27th, I believe. We sent the contract over. He signed, everything like that. We were officially under contract, sent EMD to title, everything like that. We opened escrow, and that was that. So right after that, that's when we kind of got to this point where we said, "Okay, great, let's start doing all this stuff." Now, when we went through, before we got into contract, we looked at our lots, we looked at stuff that's sold in the area, we looked at all kinds of stuff, and come to find out, we found a bunch of lots in the area selling for 12 to 15,000 an acre if they had water. So we really were like at this hinge point where we're like, we need water, because now you're talking here. Let me bring up a calculator here. Let me see this. I could probably just do this. Where are we at? Let's just do new Google Sheet. Good job. Okay, so I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger. I didn't really prepare anything for this. I was just going to show you my numbers live, but let me just show you anyways. So, okay, so basically 297 acres. It actually ended up, we actually got a survey, and we ended up coming in at 310 acres or 303 something, right? He wants 1,150,000. Okay, so equals this divided by this. Okay, so that's what he wanted. He wanted 3,800 an acre. Format numbers. Let's turn this into currency. Okay, so that's what he wanted. 3,875 an acre. 3,872 an acre. Okay, came to that agreement. Everything like that. Now, what we thought we could sell it for was conservatively, we thought 12,500. Okay, so essentially that would equal times that equals, let me do something, format, text, currency. Okay. So essentially that's what we thought we could exit for, was 3.715 million. If we ended up selling this, 297 times 15,000 an acre, which we did see a lot of comps in that area, we thought maybe we could do really good, right? 4.5. And that would mean if we had infrastructure, we had water, we had all that stuff we had to do. So we figured we had somewhere around water infrastructure was about 300,000 if we had to extend pipelines and do all that stuff. Guys, so we figured, okay, no problem with that. If we had to do wells, it's about $20,000 per well, $20,000 to $30,000 a well if it's like 400 to 500 feet, right? 300 to 400 feet. I'm sorry. So we figured, okay, so if we had, say, 27 wells, equals 27 times 20,000. It's 540,000 if we had wells. If we had just water, it'd be about, this is 15K, this is 12.5K, this was asking. Okay. This is acres. Okay. So we said, okay, if we had to do wells, if we had to do, extend pipelines, whatever the case may be, pipelines was about 300,000. Pipes, water meters. That's kind of what we figured. Okay. We had some other infrastructure in there as well. We had surveying. Surveying was going to cost us. We had a bunch of bunch of different quotes. I honestly got a quote, and this blew my mind, for $9,950 for a quote. I was like, what? $10,000 to do a boundary and all my subdivision, which was insane. Other people were quoting me $30,000 and plus. So it was nuts. So we had a quote for $10,000 for surveying. Survey. We had to do some, there was some other work we had to do. Some other little things. So I think it was another like 75,000. Okay. So then we had, let's do that. So then we were going to borrow 1.15. We were going to borrow equals sum of this, this, and this. So our total lend would be equals this plus this would be our total lend, so 1.53. So that's what we would borrow. And then basically, if we borrowed that, we would be paying back times 1.1. So we'd be paying back 1.6888 divided by 297. Okay, so that's pretty much, we would be into each parcel for about $56.85 per acre. So about 2,000, almost 2,000 per acre, in improvements and everything like that is pretty much where we would be at. So, which left us, pretty much for everything, our spread was fat. Like we had this minus this. Oops, I did it the wrong way. Equals this minus this, or this minus this. That's not including realtors and stuff like that. I'm not going to factor that in right now. Actually, I could just do that real quick. Let me just times this times 0.94. I'll do 9.2 with closing costs. It doesn't really actually, never mind. It doesn't really help me because that does not, Factor that in. Okay. Anyways, if we did that times 0.92 and then did equals this minus this. Okay, that'd be our total profit. So let's do the same thing here. This times this minus. Okay. So basically we were looking at this, we're like, man, we're about to make, 1.17. 297. Okay, so this would essentially be our profit right here. We're like, wow, we are about to make, 5,800 per acre or 8,100 per acre after everything. I'm like, that's insane. That's a really good profit. Then comes the ball that drops. So once we started getting more into our due diligence, that's when we started realizing, we got some issues here. Can't get water meters from the pipelines. Okay, we found out both water lines are tapped. We're at the end of the lines. They can't extend it for another couple years. All that stuff. Everything is basically like mute at that point. So we're like, okay, what can we do as dry land? Right? Can we still subdivide this, sell it as dry land, and just get water delivery? So we found a bunch of companies that do water delivery. They bulk water delivery. We got pricing. So we got, 10,000 storage tank. If we got a storage tank and we put, we had everything plus water and like that, it's like $7,000. So we figured, okay, so if we did bulk water delivery, it would cost about 10 cents a gallon. We figured it's about $400 to $1,200 depending. And that's kind of what we figured out, what would be our total cost and everything like that. So we kind of like planned everything out, like, okay, maybe we're going to sell this with water delivery and all that stuff. So we decided then, we were like, okay, let's take a look at that, how it would look. So what we did is we had drone shots go out. We had somebody go out, take pictures with drones, everything like that. These aren't our drones. These are just regular things. Oh, I forgot to mention. So we started looking into wells. Okay. That was the other thing. So come to find out, here's our property, right? More Texas right here. Here's our property. This is the property right here. So we went on to this company right here, Water Data Interactive. This shows us all our water, our wells and everything like that. So what we did is we started looking at well reports. So you could go in here, you could look at all these well reports, and you could see how deep they were. You could see well has been plugged, all that stuff. You could see like all this stuff about the well, when it was dug, what kind of drilling they did, everything. So this gives you a really good idea of pretty much how deep it was and everything like that. This is a test well, I think it was, Regional Independent School District. Yeah, this is not us, okay? New well. So 8-inch, which is massive. Bottom depth 12. So this is not a good well. This is not a performing well either. So we kind of went in here and we started looking around at all the wells. Now, if you notice, that's a geothermal closed loop. So if you look at this, I got no wells in my area at all. None. So that's scary, right? Because I got no water coming in. So I said, man, what the hell is going on? Okay, so here's a new well, public water supply, Riesel, Texas, all that stuff right here. And we looked at it and look at the borehole. It's a 24-inch borehole. And they went bottom depth with 3,340 feet. Okay. That is a massive, massive well. Okay. So it shows you here's all the stuff they went through, at what depths they hit it, and how long it took to get through it, everything like that. So they kind of go through everything. It's kind of crazy to see. And turns out this well is actually the well that services our road, 4-mile road right here. That's the well. So this well, they drill this and they service all this area on that pipeline. What we found out is basically after talking to a bunch of well companies, there is a fault line that this fault line essentially runs right. See how there's like no wells left and right of this? There's a fault line that runs right here. Okay. That fault line basically is a shelf, and that shelf drops off all the groundwater like crazy. So what happened, and we found this out, is there is no water there until you hit 3,000 feet. None. So we were gonna do test wells, and then we basically just decided to cancel because I didn't see a single well on this map that was nearby that was not like a good producing well until you hit like a couple hundred feet. All these 7-inch diameter, 200-foot depth. It was let me see. None of these actually hit water until you hit like 3,000 feet. So we're screwed at that point. No water on the pipelines, no water in wells. So we went water delivery route. We said, let's gauge interest. So what we did, here's pictures. We started running ads. We ran ads. Here's our lot layout. Here's everything like that. This is pretty much what we were going to subdivide everything into. And we started gauging interest. Started seeing, we listed these at 99,000, which is 10,000 an acre. For dry land, we figured about 8,000 an acre. So we figured let's list it at 99,000. That's 10 acres, and it was going to be seller finance. So boom, here's seller finance, and here's everything basically. I should have did 1776, right? I probably would have sold some lots then. 10% down and 1777 a month for 10 years. Or cash price 80,000 per lot. Electric available at the road. Water will require a storage tank. No city water or well access. No restrictions to protect your investments. Blah blah blah. Bigger discount. So basically, if we sold in bulk, we give a big discount. Everything like that. Ranching, homestead. So we ran these ads. We started running ads. We started seeing, here's the different lots that we were selling. We had a couple people that were interested, but turns out we really never got enough traction, and we kind of were coming down to the last, like, I'd say this was May. We kind of came down. We were like, crap, now it's like really getting close. And we got to do something with this. So it's either cancel or find a buyer. So I spoke to a friend of mine, a realtor down there. And I talked to him and I was like, hey, Ryan, like, what do you think you could do here? Right. We've been running these ads. It was about 3 weeks we were in, and we really didn't get any real traction. So, which I found out, funny little tip. So my friend, partner on this deal, Jeff, he lives in Texas, and he ran the same exact ad as I did. He got way more traction than I did, even though we're both listing in Mart, Texas, whatever the case may be. He got way more traction because he's local versus me. I got way less traction by like 4x more traction. So they will push locals first over you. So that does help if you have a friend who's got a Facebook in that area. Have them run the listing for you. Okay. It definitely helped. And we could have done more pictures. We could have done a lot more stuff. We sent people stuff, everything like that. And, it was just a bunch of tire kickers, basically. So anyway, so that was that. So we realized we're not going to be able to sell this thing on seller finance. It'd really be tough. So I didn't want to take it down with my lenders, and then we can't sell any lots, right? I mean, granted, we probably put them on, if we put them on the MLS, we probably would have sold some. Now, we were considering listing them on the MLS and going through all that stuff. And then we thought about it, and we're like, if we list these on the MLS we realized we can't list them on the MLS because we don't have them platted out yet, because they don't actually exist. So you're creating like a fake listing because none of these APNs exist yet. So we ended up having to not list it on the MLS. Now, what I did sign was I talked to a friend of mine. We were still running our Facebook stuff and still testing out other places to sell it. We put it on Craigslist, put it all over the place, everywhere. Now, talked to my friend who's a realtor. And I had him list this as exclusive agency. Okay. But I told him, I said, look, I don't want you to put it on the MLS because our seller asked us to please not let his neighbors know that he's selling the parcel. Okay. So we said, okay, no problem. We won't list it on the MLS, but we are going to market it. So we ended up going out, we marketed it, and come to find out about a week later, we get a buyer. Buyer comes in and he offered us 48.50 an acre. Okay. Equals 1.444, right? Equals, let's do this. What is this? We said, sweet. Gonna make 290K. Quick, no problems. We just have a 6% realtor in there. So, we'll have to pay him, but whatever. And then we'll just get a funder in here to fund the double close, and that's pretty much it. And we'll just double close this baby. So we said, okay, great. All sounds good. We go in there, we negotiate to 48.75, and we go ahead, we get this up to 48.75, sign the contract, everything like that. And then the seller, the day he's going to sign the purchase agreement to buy the property, he goes out to the property and he calls us, or he calls my agent immediately, and he goes, if that guy cuts one more acre of hay, I'm canceling. I'm not signing anything. I'm not buying the property. So what happened was, there is a leasee on the property. Okay. This leasee was paying $8,400 a year. Like, it was like absolutely nothing. $8,000 a year to lease the property. And he gets rights to the hay and all that stuff. He runs cattle, all that stuff, whatever. Now, the seller had told him, hey, we're not going to be renewing your lease. I'm selling the property, this and that. Okay, no problem. He was all cool about it. 2 months later comes by. We actually tell him, hey, property's going to be closing in June. So just so you know, you're going to have to vacate. And he goes, I'm not leaving. He goes, I got 6 months left in my contract. And we also told him we can't cut hay. He goes, that's my hay to cut. I could do whatever I want. So we were like, well, shit. Here we are, an $8,000 lease is going to make us lose $297,000. I said, that's not happening. So talked to the seller, and I told him, hey, look, man, you got to talk to this guy and let him know what's happening. Like, this guy's going to make you lose $1.15 million, like, over a $6,000 lease. He's like, I know. He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, he won't. He's like, this is the most animated I've ever heard of in my life. This and that. He's going on and on. I said, all right, talk to him. Tell him I'm going to call him. I'll talk to him. I've never met this guy. I never talked to him in my life. So I have to get on the phone with him. So I get on the phone, talking to this guy, and he is rude as hell. And he's reading me the riot act, telling me all this and that. And he goes, no amount of money. Originally, our seller came in and said, I'll give you $25,000 to vacate and end the rest of your lease. So essentially $30,000. And he goes, no amount of money is going to change my tune. I'm not going anywhere or anything like that. Actually, no, he didn't tell him that. He just said, I'll refund him his entire lease and all that stuff. And he goes, no amount of money is going to change my mind. Okay, cool. I get on the phone with him. And I'm like, I'm letting him rip at me, tell me this, tell me that. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, I got these cattle. I'm running them. And now you're killing it. Everything like that. I need this money and all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, I get you, man. Totally get it. Whatever. Let him just go. Walk the dog kind of thing. Let him just go off the ramp. And then right at the end of the conversation, I say, hey, look, Jared, at the end of the day, you're going to move in 6 months. Okay. So wouldn't it be wiser for you to move 6 months sooner with pockets full of money versus waiting 6 months and having it come out of your pocket? And he goes, okay. I said, here's what I could offer you. I'll give you $25,000 if you could vacate by June 6th, and we'll refund you the remainder of your lease. So about $30,000 total. So he stopped talking. And as soon as he stopped talking, I realized it's because he's thinking. And he's like, man, this is actually probably a pretty good deal. So he's like, let me think about it. Okay, no problem. So he goes and he thinks about it. I call the seller and I tell him what happened. He goes, man, I can't believe you did that. He's like, that's amazing. Like, he's like, I couldn't get the guy to give me anything and you got him, whatever. So I waited till the next day, hopped on the phone with the guy, and by far, this guy was the most difficult part of the entire transaction was this freaking leasee. So hop on the phone with the guy, talking to him. And I was like, listen, man, what's going on here? What do we got to do? Like, what has to happen for this to actually go through? And he's like, here's what I need, man. He's like, I have cattle. I have this. I have that. I have a whole bunch of stuff. Let me actually, he sent me the laundry list of things of what he needed. Let me open it. Here you go. Okay, so he sends me back this laundry list of stuff that he's like, I need this stuff to basically be able to cancel. He needed $64,976. So first of all, no amount of money was going to get him to move, right? Now all of a sudden he came up with an exact figure. So that's bullshit. He needed that much, right? Unrealized calf revenue, which is bullshit because he's keeping the cattle. It's not like he's getting rid of them. So this was a fugazi number he just came up with on the top of his head. Cost to replace the hay. Totally legit, right? $21,000, the hay that he was going to use to feed his cattle. Now he doesn't have anymore. He has costs, hard costs to recover that. Perfectly fine. That one's legit. Cost to fence the associated 40 acres. So there's that 40-acre tract, right? This guy right here, this 40-acre tract, he basically moved his cattle from here to here. Okay. So first of all, it's bullshit that he needed anything. So there you go. So then he needed $14,000 to fence that. Okay. Prorated lease remainder was $4,000. Calf was $29,000 plus that, whatever. I think his total was like $64,000 plus $4,000 is like almost $70,000 he wanted. And I was like, no, dude, come on. I said, I got on the phone with him. I said, I'm reading everything. I said, totally legit. The cost of the hay, totally legit. I got it. You got it. Let's do that. So the fence, I said, look, it's kind of bullshit that you're making me pay for your fencing that you're going to keep, but I'll play ball. Okay. And I'm going to pay you back the remainder of the lease. So that's right there was $40,000. I said, I'll give you $40,000. I said, because you're not selling those cattle. I know you're not. I said, that's just a number you put in there to beef up numbers. I know it. And he goes, no, I got to sell the cattle. I got to do this and that. He's like, oh, we got 11 cattle. I got a calf out by the end of the year. We have 17. We know if it's sold by the end of the year, whatever. So basically he's telling me I'm losing that much money, which is bullshit. He's not selling them early. I also know in the back of my head, this guy's also got another 300 acres he's leasing right down the road. So he's got 340 acres that he could technically move these cattle to. And he did. He moved them to the other 300-acre ranch. But I didn't pull that card out because basically this guy would blow my entire deal up. So I said, here's what I could do. I could do $45,000. That's it. $45K, you'll get paid. I'll give you $4,500 the day you leave. And I'll give you the remainder as soon as you close escrow. So, and it's coming out of my pocket, whatever. And he goes, let me think on it. Comes back the next day. He goes, I could do $60,000. So I said, look, Jared, you're putting me in a hard place because normally I would just tell you to F off. But here's the thing, because I like Delwyn and I want to make it work for him. I'm going to talk to the seller. I'm going to try to make this work. Okay. So I go call the seller. Now we were originally at 1.15 million. I said, look, man, I need you to come down to 1.12. I'm going to cover 30K. You're going to cover 30K. And we're going to make the deal happen. He goes, you're kidding me. I'm like, no, that's what we need to do. He's like, that's fine. Let's just do it. So lo and behold, Guy got his 60K. And you know what? He's happier than a pig in shit because he lucked out. I mean, the guy basically got everything he wanted and more. And it's funny because he works for the ag department in town, and somebody looked up his salary and he was like $35,000 for the year. And somebody was like, this guy made like almost twice his salary in one negotiation. I'm like, yeah, he did a pretty damn good job. So good for him. Hey, I'm like glad it worked out. So it's all good. The deal ended up going through. Okay. So here we are now. Now we have to sign a lease termination. So I am not privy to the lease. I'm not part of the lease. I'm not part of anything. I just drafted up the agreement. So basically, here's a mutual lease termination agreement that we had. Basically, we got everything. We took all the stuff. We filled in all the information, gave him 60K, blah, 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 blah. Basically, we said, here's the effective date. He had to leave by June 6th. All funds will be paid at close of escrow. Funds will be held by a title company. It does not occur. Agreement shall be null and void, and existing lease shall remain in full force and effect. So he agreed to everything on there. And that was that. So we ended up going. We sent him everything. I said by June 6th, I need you to be off the property because closing date is June 13th. Okay? Okay, let's do it. Sounds great. So he starts moving his cattle. He stopped cutting hay, everything like that. Everything went great. And the buyer was all happy. Buyer said, me and the buyer were arguing back and forth about who's covering title insurance versus who's covering the title insurance versus who's covering the survey. And he's like, I'll cover the survey and you cover title insurance. Well, title insurance is supposed to be $13,000 and survey was only $6,000. So I said, no, fuck you. You cover title insurance. I'll cover the survey. And we ended up going back and forth. I talked to the title company. I said, look, I need you to do this for me for like $6,000. So they ended up getting down to $7,000. So it saved me money. But basically I covered title. He covered the survey, all fine and dandy. Okay. June 6th comes, actually June 4th comes, and the lease guy, he called me up and he goes, hey, I'm off the property. Boom, let me verify it. So I send my realtor down there. My realtor goes, walks the property. He goes, he's gone. That's it. And then I got a bag of dirt. I don't have my dirt on me. I got a bag of dirt sent to me from him. So that was that. We ended up getting vacated the property, collected some dirt from me, sent that up. So now I could add it to my dirt wall in the back. We ended up then pushing closing still to June 13th. So we went in, we got everything prepped up, docs prepped up, all that stuff. And I've talked to the title company and I said, hey, look, here's the thing. We gotta close this. I could bring in transactional funding, but I preferably would like to not. Is there any way you could do pass-through funding? And she goes, hell yeah, I could do pass-through funding. I'm like, awesome. Because now we're talking about saving. I usually get my my double close funding for about 1% of the total, like 0.75% to 1%. So at 1%, you're saving almost $11,000. Other people were charging me, other people gave me quotes for like 2%. So between $10,000 and $20,000, I basically almost had to pay. But luckily, title company rocks, Capital Title, they came through. They said, yeah, we could absolutely close this with pass-through funding. So I said, great. So that was Monday. Tuesday, she started setting everything up, got all the docs out. We were reviewing HUDs. We were reviewing everything. We ended up having to change the purchase price for the seller, our purchase price, because it was a weird way with the lease agreement that by me reducing the price, it actually would carry over to HUD on the B2C side, which muddies up the transaction because the leaser or leasee was not part of the B2C side. He was only part of the A to B side. So what I had to do actually was increase the purchase price to $1.18 million, which is 30 and 30 both ways, to then push it onto that side of the transaction so that when the pass-through funding comes in, the money from the buyer, the new buyer would come in, fund the other side, the A to B. And when that A to B gets funded, then that remainder in between, that's my money and the realtor's money and all that stuff, whatever. So that's basically what we had to do. So I had to increase the purchase price to 1.18 million. So I'll show you guys the HUDs. All right, so here's HUDs, 1.18 million. That's our EMD lease termination right here. And then here you go. So we ended up, this might be the actual, not the right one. Let me see. Yeah, no, I think this is the right one. Yep, we're good. So on our side, on the A to B side, we have $1,500 in closing costs. Here's $54,000 that went out to the lease termination right here, right there. So those are my costs. So $60,000 basically was my cost. So my actual like closing costs weren't much at all on the A to B side, like really for what it was. And then the B to C side, that was A to B again. So here's B to C side, came in at 1.474492. It ended up being just a little bit over 300 acres, but then there was another argument that came in because there was 3 acres that were in the roadway. He's like, I'm not paying for those 3 acres, even though in his agreement explicitly stated that he's paying the exact amount that is surveyed. And when the survey came in with that, he's like, I'm not paying for that. And we argued back. We're like, no, you said you're paying the exact amount surveyed. And he goes, oh, fuck it, I'll just cancel everything. So I said, obviously, we're going to just take off those 3 acres, which is like 15K. So I took off those 3 acres. And then that's pretty much where we settled at. So my settlement charges, that's realtor fees and all that stuff. So paid for by the borrowers. So right here we have realtor fees, 44,000 goes to buyer's realtor, 44,000 goes to the my realtor who put this deal together. So good for them. They made $88,000 on the deal. And then we ended up items to be paid. We ended up having capital title insurance. So I got $7,600 for my title insurance. So I got a big reduction on that. So thank you, Shay. And then there's our escrow fee was $650, which is absolutely nothing. He paid for the survey and the mapping, which is $8,500. So I won on this because he ended up paying more for the survey than I paid for the title. So he should have went with the title and I should have went with the survey. But hey, screw him. So my total settlement costs were $97,000. So after all was said and done, the difference between the two, it was somewhere around like 201 something, whatever. So that's pretty much what our net was on this deal after everything, which was awesome. So what's really cool about how this all worked out is basically we took a deal that was going to be nothing. Yeah. So we had like 201s, whatever. It was a little nerve wracking. Every day it was like this deal is going to fall through, and then it ended up working out. But it was one of those deals where it's like, damn, this could go sideways or this could go every way it should, right? It did go sideways because this was supposed to be a subdivide. This was supposed to be a $2 million profit deal. Okay. That's what this was supposed to be. What we ended up with was about $200,000, right? I got to look at what the wire actually came in for, but it was about $200,000 that came in. And it just turns out like this was a deal that we looked at it and we're like, we're going to have to just throw this away. We can't monetize it. And then boom, here we go. We were able to still turn around and make money with it. So awesome. So like, even though like our plans changed 4, 5, 6 times, we still could come in and actually do something with it. So I'm just doing this to kind of show everybody, like when you think a deal is dead, doesn't mean it's actually dead, right? Maybe you just have to pivot. Maybe you have to change something. Maybe you have to do whatever the case may be. We lucked out 10 ways to Sunday because just so happens there was a cattle rancher looking for 300 acres and he had $1.5 million cash. Just worked out, right? It was a pain in the ass to deal with. He was a total pain, but It worked out for everybody. The seller got paid, and I got paid, and everything like that. I'm cold calling for land deals, and I'm in Houston. What would you suggest if I'm not getting traction? I would say you're just not calling enough. That's really what it is. If you're not making, a lot of dials a day, it's a numbers game when it comes down to cold calling. It's a huge numbers game. So you literally have to be hitting, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but you're probably, if you're just out there single line dialing, at least 100 a day, 100 a day, and you need to have at least 10 conversations a day to actually see something. And at that point, you'll probably see something within like a month to 2 months. So if you're not hitting those numbers, then you got to do something else. You're just wasting your time, unless it'll take you months to get a deal. So, yeah, so that's pretty much it. So now we have a couple other double closes. A couple other subdivides we're working on, and just trying to get these bigger deals taken down. I actually would 100% prefer doing 4 or 5 of these deals a year versus doing 60 small deals. While there are stressors and big stressors in these big deals, it's a different ball game, and the caliber of people you talk to and work with are just completely different. And I feel like that's a huge thing when you're going to work with deals. So, funnily enough, this seller is now becoming one of my private lenders. So that $1.12 million that we paid him, that we actually did not pay him, the buyer paid him, is going to be coming back to me in the way of funds. We're going to be, I had a talk with him the other day, and we're going to be talking more, and he wants to go and do a deal together, and we're going to have him fund one of our deals and see how it goes. I have a nice 55-acre tract that we're going to have him fund, and it's a buy for 10K an acre, sell for 16K an acre. So right north of him. So he's very happy. So it's crazy. These bigger deals, you could basically use that money and just keep recycling it and all that stuff. So it's awesome. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is a difficult deal, but it took us a lot of effort, and it obviously did not work out, but it still worked out at the end, and we still made money, which is great. So that's exciting. But yeah, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. 10 a.m. tonight, I do no deals in my own market. None. I'm in New Jersey. We don't, we have land out here, but not like that. I don't really do many deals in my market at all, actually. I've only had 2 leads in New Jersey, and I ended up canceling on both of them. They weren't good properties. So yeah, none. Yeah. I mean, how many dials are you getting in a day? What type of properties are you looking at? I have a friend who's cold calling, and he's absolutely crushing it. So it just depends, on your dials and all that stuff. So, all right, y'all, I'm going to head out. I have, just pivot, man. That's all you got to do. I'm going to head out. I have the sales call tonight. So if you guys are in LIA, I'll see you tonight on the sales call. If not, I'll see y'all next week. Later.